Our next speaker is Lyndon Rive. He's the co-founder of SolarCity and chief executive since 2006. SolarCity, as you probably know, is one of the pioneers in the leasing model that brings cost-effective solar power to homes and businesses throughout our state and the rest of the country. Solar power has grown rapidly as the technology has improved, but it also faces many challenges as the level of subsidies has been reduced. Now, I know Christina asked many of you how you got here today. I'm betting that Lyndon probably drove a Tesla here. I think it's probably a safe bet, but the question is, did he use autopilot or not? Now, on what the future might hold for solar power, Lyndon Rive.
Hi, everybody. So for this next 15 minutes or so, my goal in this presentation is just to give you a view of how SolarCity sees the future of the grid and the evolvement that's going to occur. Before I start off, let me just say how great California is. California is clearly the leader in this space. We have over 80,000 or just under 80,000 employees in the industry in California. We've deployed close to 14 gigawatts of solar capacity. And because of good policy, California is setting the foundation to become the clean energy leader of the world. Today, California is a hub for technology, entertainment, and the next primary hub is going to be clean energy. So, and that's 100% because of good policy. So let me get into the existing infrastructure. So the existing infrastructure that we've deployed is incredibly important. It's gotten society to where it is today. If it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have lights. So it's a key necessity. But as we look at expanding the existing infrastructure, let's not use technology as based on 50-year-old technology. Let's really look at what does the future need to look like and be embracing the change. And often when we go up against this, it is always come down to cost. And we compare new technology cost to old technology cost. And when you look at the levelized cost of energy, often old technology cost may be perceived as a lower cost of energy. But in that cost analysis, no one ever includes the one-time events, which happen all the time. So it's not necessarily one-time events, and I'll cover some of them. You don't include the security aspects, and often you don't include the environmental impact, which is becoming really big. Let me just cover the most significant one-time events. So San Onofre, of course, was one of the biggest costs right now to the ratepayers, the nuclear power plant failure. If we look at security, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this. There was an attack on the PG&E Metcalfe substation. SolarCity recently hired John Wellinghoff, who was the former chairman of FERC. And he actually investigated that attack and did his own research on it. It was an attack with a high-powered rifle on the substation. And based on his research, on a hot summer day, if you attack 9 substations, you could essentially make most of the US dark. And that's one person, one high-powered rifle. And I know getting rifles is not a problem in the US. Then the environmental impact. The environmental impact's real. None of this cost can be articulated to energy, but it's the reason for this is because the way we create energy is causing most of the environmental challenges. So that cost has to be included. If you look at the natural disasters that we've had, in the first decade of the 21st century, we've had over 3,000 natural disasters. That's 5 times more than we did in the 1970s. So this is real. These costs have to be included when we look at producing energy, the old way versus the new way. Now, the only way we're really going to make a transition and make the transition fast enough is if there's a collaboration and we work together. Right now, infrastructure is being deployed, distributed infrastructure is being deployed, and unless we start valuing it and start working together at resolving the issue, there's always going to be a friction. But distributed energy can really help solve this issue. And let me describe the vision here. So the way we're all familiar with our grid is you have a centralized power station, transmission and distribution lines go into the house. So that's the way we've been doing it for a very long time. The challenge with this is, as we look at deploying this further, any new infrastructure that we deploy, specifically in California with the permitting time, it can be anywhere between 5 to 8 years before that's up and running. So it's like hitting a moving target. If you shoot and you assume the target's standing still, it's a lot easier. But if you shoot and the target's moving, you have to aim for where you think the target's going to be. So if we think, what is the future going to look like 5 years from now? We should build towards that, not to what it is today. And to me, it's very, very clear what the future looks like 5 years from now. And the biggest ingredient to making this all work is going to be storage. So let's just play it out and tell me where I'm wrong in my thesis. Tesla announced the Model 3. It's the most successful product launch in world history. So if you are an auto car company and you look at that, you're thinking, man, I need to create a car that competes against that. So every large auto company out there is going to be making a car that's going to be competing against the Model 3. Tesla is also building the largest gigafactory, largest lithium-ion factory in the world. In fact, it's larger than all the factories combined. And so that's going to be supplying storage for their cars. All the other car companies are going to have to create their own storage factories, either do it themselves or partner with somebody else. But there's going to be a massive investment into storage over the next 3 years. Massive, massive investment in large scale. And with that, price comes down, and price comes down significantly. So if you know that's going to happen, that's like that path is left, that is happening, then storage cost is going to come down. And so then the future of solar combined with storage being deployed is very, very clear and very obvious. And if you do that, the grid is far more resilient, and you can provide all the grid services that you would need for the house. Now, it wouldn't just be storage. You'd essentially have a smart home. So it'd be storage, a device that communicates with your devices within your house, and a smart inverter. Today, all the inverters that have been deployed in the US, essentially dumb inverters, so you can't provide voltage control services. That's changing, and that's happening this year. So that by the end of this year, you'll be able to provide those type of services. But what I mean by a smart house, you're all familiar with Nest, but the intelligence in Nest is how to maximize savings for the homeowner inside the house. It doesn't really think, what does the grid need? And so to me, a smart house is a house that does both. It understands what the homeowner's behavior requirement is to maximize comfort, but at the same time, know what the grid needs is. And if you want to modify comfort oh so slightly that the homeowner wouldn't know it, but it would make a massive benefit in aggregate to the grid, that's very valuable. And that's what a smart thermostat can do, a remote programmable smart thermostat can do. And so then you combine that with the storage, you can address demand response, you can have immediate ramping up periods. You don't have to have anything idling, because when you're idling, it's a big environmental impact with no value. You can provide the reactive power, voltage control, and you can provide power at night. So it really does address this problem. And here's the crazy thing, that infrastructure is going to get deployed. So what we really have to watch out for is duplicate infrastructure. That's the part that I'm most concerned of, is if both infrastructures get deployed, then cost will go up dramatically. So we have to look at where the ball's going, so where's the target going, and where do we have to shoot the target, and make sure we invest in the right stuff and create a model that embraces this. We're starting to see some impact of this. So there was a decision to stop upgrade of a bunch of transformers that saved California $192 million. That's based on solar and energy efficiency with dumb inverters. So it's not even getting to its full capacity yet. We started to see utilities engaging on this process and really starting to see, okay, it's important that they understand how combined distributed energy sources can act like a power plant for them. We're doing a bunch of pilots. I know a bunch of other companies are doing a bunch of pilots with the utilities, and they're starting to realize this is something they have to look into. Let me address something that's more relevant to the LA County area. This is another one-time event. Remember, there's many one-time events. Now, Lisa Canyon, the impact of that was invisible. This is infrared, and you can actually see the impact. But I'm going to ignore not that I want to ignore the environmental impact, but I just want to talk about the economic impact of this. Because of the natural gas shortage, LA County is forecasting about 14 days of blackouts. Now, it's hard to forecast, but that's the going forecast. To address that forecast and to essentially eliminate it, all you would need is 150,000 homes with solar and storage. That's 4% of the available homes. It's really not that big a lift. 4%. Think what we could do if we had 50% or 60%, and what impact we could have. But only 4% could really address that issue. Now, in order to really accelerate this vision, we have to create collaboration. The reason often why there's a friction between a disruptive technology and the existing technology is that the existing technology has to debate it, because the way they make money, the utility industry, the way it makes money today, is they only get paid on infrastructure they deploy. Don't get me wrong, the utility is incredibly vital to all of this. We have to have the grid. So let's create a model where the utilities can participate in distributed energy resources and can share in it. And then by doing that, they can make profits off it, and then be less friction. Because it doesn't matter how good the intention is. If the model says that if somebody else deploys the infrastructure, you don't make money, you always are going to debate why you have to deploy that infrastructure. And so we actually wrote a paper on this, and we call it Infrastructure as a Service. Most of you probably are familiar with software as a service. Everybody's familiar with Salesforce.com. Somebody else hosts the infrastructure, and you use the service. So the same vision applies to infrastructure as a service. The homeowner is already getting solar. The homeowner will already have the smart inverter. It will have storage. So it already has all that infrastructure. Why not enable that infrastructure to the utility so the utility can use that infrastructure to manage the grid better? Today, if that were to happen, it would be a pass-through cost and the utility would make no money. I feel that's wrong. I think the utility should make money off that and be able to participate in this transformation. And so I highly encourage reading our white paper. And if you take the infrastructure as a service model, just for California, we did a real deep dive on this. Our estimate, sorry, I was one slide behind you guys, shit. Okay, the slide order is not exactly the same as mine. Okay, apologize for that. Anyway, so there was a closing slide, which may have been, there's my closing slide. Okay, so if you use that infrastructure as a service, you would end up saving the state about $1.4 billion in cost, and the utility would make money in that process. So that's my closing point there, is we really have to modify the utility revenue model to embrace this change so we don't find ourselves building two duplicate infrastructures, and the utility and the renewable industry will collaborate a lot more to really solving the problem. And I want to give credit to many of the utilities out there. They're already trying to solve this problem and work together. So thank you very much.